Since 2001, St John's School in Marlborough has been involved in a Key Stage 3 curriculum revolution.
We realised that a lot of the students were actually learning to pass exams. They were not learning for learning's sake, and that's not education.
Are you waiting for lessons for us?
What I wanted to do was to take a good school and to try and make it outstanding. But what you realise quite quickly is that you're limited, and the national curriculum as it was structured then was very much a limiting factor.
At the end of the school year, the teachers were exhausted. They crawled to the cars, and that's wrong. The children should be the ones who are actually working. The teachers should be supporting them. They should have the energy to support them, and the energy was being channelled on driving them through the education system.
Come in, folks. Just as you normally...
There's a limit as a head to how hard you can beat your staff to make them work ever harder for no real gain. And I think sometimes you have to stop, sit back and say, OK, if the national curriculum's getting in the way of learning and getting in the way of enthusiasm for learning, then it's got to go.
You know the groups that you're going to work in. Is this classroom suitable for working in groups?
At about the time St John's was thinking radical thoughts about the national curriculum, the Royal Society of Arts was developing a curriculum proposal known as Opening Minds.
We began to work with the RSA on the ideas of what a learner in the 21st century would actually need to become an effective citizen. And so we started off with 5 core competencies, as we call them. Things like learning to learn, relating well to people, managing situations, managing information, global citizenship, as fundamental things that would make the difference to developing capable, confident learners.
I would like you to nominate...
Assistant head teacher Lynn Quantick's class has the task of inventing a country. These Year 7 students are used to working collaboratively in groups. It's this way of working Catherine Pollard and her team developed when they first tried out a new curriculum.
So discuss who it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm fastest. Yeah.
We decided to run it as a pilot. We took 1/3 of our Year 7, so about 87 children, and the other 2/3 of the control group, so they continue with the normal national curriculum. And we set about creating a modular curriculum.
Will stand for the right continent.
But this modular curriculum had a slight difference, that whatever we did, the 5 core competencies ran through the whole of what we did at all times.
We threw out the national curriculum, I'm not sure I should say that, but we did. And we literally designed a curriculum that followed a storyline. It formed what we call a learning journey throughout the 6-week module. And every 6 weeks we changed the module so it was reinvigorated.
What continent would I be in if I was celebrating the festival of Thanksgiving? Talk about it. And then send your messenger to the right one.
Any child should feel free to change the direction of the lessons. Now that was quite scary talk in those days. The idea of the teacher giving up the control of the curriculum and the control of the direction of lessons was very frightening for some people.
What continent would I be on if this was the continent where budgerigars originated from?
The energy comes from, we're starting something new, how we're going to go about it. And it was frightening at times. There were teachers who were actually frightened because they said it's like lighting the blue touch paper on a firework and just watching where it went.
I think that's Australia. I think it's Australia.
We realised by the end of February in that first year that we'd cottoned onto something that was powerful.
Children didn't want to go out to breaks, they didn't want to go out to lunch, they wanted to carry on working. Teachers were talking about learning and teaching and learning in corridors.
Immediately we realised that, this was a concept. We just ditched the plans for pilot and control group because it's immoral to know when you've got a successful formula and not use it across the board.
And the right answer is where Matthew is.
Because we didn't feel limited and constrained, Year 7 students will be doing work from Year 10, Year 11 syllabuses. Even some of the A-level syllabus work was going into Year 7, Year 8. And the children were coping.
What's our main task for today? What are you going to be doing in your groups, please? Jamie?
Your own island.
You're creating your own country. Work out what's going to go in the particular climate that your country requires. Then decide, so what are you going to do to support your team? So I expect to hear lots of discussion, lots of negotiation. Off you go, folks.
Who wants to be resources? Okay. Jamie? Well, Harry's resources. There's scribe, leader, messenger. You could be the messenger. And I'll be the timer.
What do you want to do? Like currency?
Yeah, what currencies?
Buildings?
So what should we have? Should we have a vote? Who goes for hot? Who goes hot?
Who goes hot?
Mine is hot then.
I'm going hot. Okay, so it's going to be hot. So it's going to be a hot climate.
I think what we had in Year 7 and what's kind of stayed with the people who were part of the pilot is to try and achieve the maximum that you can. It was no longer about meeting a minimum standard. That's something that the national curriculum seems to kind of inculcate in people's consciousnesses, that you have to meet the minimum and then you're okay and you can go home.
These students, now doing their A-levels, were in the original pilot and did GCSEs a year early. They're advocates for the Key Stage 3 revolution.
It's focusing on developing people rather than just developing sets of knowledge, facts that aren't really particularly useful or relevant to anybody.
One of the things I actually found really interesting, looking back to Year 7, is how much the students really recognise qualities in one another that normally would be passed by. Because, we did a lot of teamwork activities, and, you get quiet people in the corner who would completely come out of themselves, and it gave people opportunities to excel in something that maybe would have been completely passed by if they'd been in the normal curriculum.
It felt like all the teachers were on this working together, and so therefore it was much easier for us to work with them, because we knew that if we got really into something in one lesson, that in the next lesson the different teacher would happily let us continue it right through.
Do you remember at the end of one lesson you came to me and said you liked my lessons?
Yeah.
Do you remember the rest of the quote?
Miss, I love your lessons, but we don't do any work, which we'd spent the lesson, I think, arranging tables into continents and putting down different recipes and being creative and exciting. And I thought that didn't count as work because I'd spent my primary school years writing stuff and then going home and coming back and writing more stuff. So I thought that wasn't really proper work.
So instead of having petrol scooters that led off into the atmosphere, we could have electric. Solar powered. Yeah, solar powered.
The fun of inventing your own country exemplifies the St John's approach, the St John's curriculum. It has perceptible consequences in the behaviour of the children.
In the Indian Ocean.
Why don't we be near
the Red Sea? Australia, near Australia.
Boys in Year 7, mad on football, playtime, things like that. The writing, the presentation of work is not wonderful. And what we found very quickly was that the boys were excited by this way of learning, because we said you don't need to produce a piece of written work for every lesson. We don't need evidence. Learning is learning.
Australian Island. Boomerang Island.
Boomerang Island.
We can make it in the shape of a boomerang. Yeah. Boomerang Island.
So the learning became more energised, and what happened was the boys started to be more competitive and the performance improved.
Places to stay, like hotels and things.
The girls, who did beautiful work, all nice coloured, perfectly set out, they did what the teacher asked them to do, and they found they had to think more. They had to actually construct the tasks for themselves rather than be told every detail. So both boys and girls went through a complete shift.
Could you listen, please? You've come up with some excellent ideas about how you negotiate and how you're playing to each other's strengths and supporting each other's weaknesses. Brilliant. It might be that you want
The most difficult thing we had to do with the teachers was actually get them to realise they didn't know how to teach learning.
I've got to find out so that I can do my bit towards our country.
We had many a twilight, many an after-school session where the teachers were actually working together to develop better materials. What we found was that a lot of the school curriculum is repetition.
Things for our country.
The government.
History, for instance, used to talk a lot about chronology and timelines, thinking they were the only people that did them. But I do it in textiles, science does it in history of medicine.
Superstitions.
What about how we travel everywhere?
Well, there's going to be them...
We tried to eliminate the repetition by saying, we're teaching this particular thing at this time. From now on, They know how to do it, don't repeat yourselves. So it's expected that the child brings that out of themselves in the future.
So we've got this idea of like Aztec pyramids. We've got like eco-friendly scooters. So it's kind of like combining two extremes.
Yeah, combining ancient history and futuristic technology.
For teachers coming to it new, it is a different experience, and there is a natural fear, a natural reticence and anxiety. Can I put myself in this vulnerable position? Can I go against all my natural instincts as a teacher to be standing at the front and leading the learning and allow the learning to take place in the main body of the classroom? That is a difficulty. Beyond that, it's magic.
Sitting above your table, just perched above your heads maybe, are 17 delicious marks. You need to work out the criteria to award your table your 17 marks. Off you go, Phil.
What other things would you get marks for, though?
The idea, the name,
Cooperation and teamwork and things.
teamwork.
Things like that. I think we've all worked well in a team, really.
Yeah. So who should get what? Jamie's the leader, you wrote it down. And you deserve quite a few of the points because you've done a good job of keeping everyone in check and listening to everyone, making sure everyone has their fair say. So you decide. But I think you should have at least 4 or 5 points for yourself.
You should be George because you've done more ideas than everybody else.
I think even though he's had the most ideas, I don't think he's kind of consulted with Neelam as much as he should. Because she's the leader and she should have the final decision.
3, I don't know, 4, 3, 4?
3 marks.
No, 2 marks to everyone else, so to everyone first.
For the
You've come up with quite a few.
Right, some interesting scores are coming out here. I'm going to use this table to start with. Harry, how many did you get?
I got 2.
Jamie?
I got 4.
Imi?
I got 4.
Hugo?
I got 4.
Jasmine?
I got 3.
Okay. Harry, are you upset that you've only got 2?
No, I think it's fair because I wasn't putting in as much as I could have done.
Why do you think that might have been?
Because I just wasn't thinking.
Jasmine, are you pleased with your mark? And why is yours a fair score? Remind us of your score again.
3.
Okay, why do you think 3 is okay?
Because I came up with some ideas, but not as many as I could.
Yeah, and you're one of those reflective thinkers, aren't you? You'll go away and you'll come back with loads and loads of things for us tomorrow.
Last year, Ofsted came in, they were looking at examples of innovative practice, and they said we were outstanding.
We've got so much to do, let's get the housekeeping done.
But we're not prepared to accept where we are. We want to get it better, we want to take it forward. So the new younger teachers are now rewriting the curriculum experience in light of what we've learned over the last 5 years. So it will adapt as society changes and as the student need changes.
Our next challenge is to say, well, actually, it's probably GCSEs that are getting in the way. And so the next major step for us is to say, it's probably time we abandon GCSEs in their current form and thought an alternative way of doing it.
Taking responsibility, ethics and values, teamwork in relating to people, learning relationships, effective participation, communication skills, managing situations, problem solving, strategic awareness. Well,
You could fill in everything.
we could. And what would I do without my little bookkeeper to keep me in check? You've been stars. Thank you ever so much, boys. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow. Make sure you get that bus.